The stars looked cold and distant from the bridge of the Valorian warship. Commander Zorath stood near the main viewing window, his 4 eyes fixed on the small blue planet below. Kepler 442b was not important to anyone. It was far from Earth, far from the main human colonies, and far from any military presence. At least, that was what the report said. Zorath had spent 3 long cycles watching this world. His scouts had studied every signal, every movement, and every heat signature from the small base on the surface. The humans called it Forge Station. It was a simple name for what appeared to be a simple place. 200 humans lived there, maybe a few more. They had basic weapons, old communication towers, and walls that would fall with a single bombardment done. It was perfect. The Valorian Dominion had conquered 17 worlds in the past 50 cycles. They were proud warriors with technology far beyond most species in the galaxy. Their ships were fast, their weapons were deadly, and their soldiers feared nothing. When the High Council ordered Zorath to test humanity's strength, he chose this remote outpost as his first target. Why waste resources on a difficult fight when an easy victory would send the same message? Zorath turned to his second in command. "Prepare the assault ships. We strike at dawn, their time." Far below on the planet's surface, Lieutenant Commander Daniel Hayes walked through the main corridor of Forge Station. The lights above him flickered slightly, a small problem that the maintenance team would fix later. He carried a tablet in his hand, reviewing the training schedule for the next week. There was much to do and never enough time. Don Hayes was a tall man with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had served in the United Earth Defense Force for 15 years, and he had seen more combat than most soldiers twice his age. But his job here was different. He was not here to fight. He was here to teach others how to fight better than anyone else in the galaxy. Forge Station was not a colony. It was not a mining operation. It was not a research center. It was the most advanced combat training facility that humanity had ever built. The soldiers who came here were already the best. When they left, they were something else entirely. They were weapons shaped into human form, ready to face any threat the universe could offer. Sergeant First Class Megan Torres met Hayes at the entrance to the Tactical Operations Center. She was a short woman with dark hair pulled back tight against her head. Her eyes were sharp and missed nothing. She had been a sniper before coming to Forge Station, and she still held the record for the longest confirmed kill in Defense Force history. The new batch finished their night exercise, Torres said. 80% completion rate. Hayes nodded slowly. Not bad, but not good enough. Run them again tomorrow. Torres smiled slightly. Yes, sir. Inside the operations center, Captain Kevin Brooks sat at the main console. Screens surrounded him, showing every part of the base and the land around it. Brooks was responsible for security, though that word felt strange in a place like this. Every person on Forge Station could handle a weapon. Every person knew how to fight. Security here meant something different than it did in other places. Anything interesting? Hayes asked as he approached. Brooks shook his head. Quiet night. Some strange readings from the upper atmosphere a few hours ago, but probably just solar interference. Hayes looked at the screen showing the atmospheric data. Something felt wrong, but he could not say what. He had learned to trust that feeling over the years. It had saved his life more than once. Keep watching it, Hayes said. Let me know if anything changes. In the barracks on the east side of the base, Master Sergeant Cole Patterson was finishing his equipment check. Patterson was an older man with gray at his temples and scars on his hands. He had trained more soldiers than he could count, and he had buried too many friends. But he kept going because the work mattered. Every soldier he made better was a soldier who might come home alive. Staff Sergeant Ashley Morgan sat across from him, cleaning her rifle with practiced movements. She was young but talented, one of the best tactical leaders Patterson had ever seen. Her team respected her because she led from the front and never asked them to do anything she would not do herself. "You feel that?" Patterson asked quietly. Morgan looked up. "Feel what?" Patterson was silent for a moment. "I don't know. Something in the air. Like a storm coming." Morgan returned to her rifle. "You're getting paranoid in your old age, Sergeant." Patterson laughed softly. "Maybe, but paranoid soldiers live longer than comfortable ones." High above them, hidden behind the planet's moon, 17 Valorian assault ships moved into position. Commander Zorath reviewed the attack plan one final time. 3 dropships would land near the base while orbital weapons destroyed the communication towers. His ground troops would sweep through the facility, capture any survivors, and plant the Dominion flag on human soil for the first time in history. The High Council wanted a message sent to humanity. They wanted the humans to understand that the Valorian Dominion was coming, and that resistance was pointless. This small outpost would be the first example. Others would follow. Zorath felt confident. His intelligence officers had assured him that this base held no significant military value. The humans there were trainers and students, nothing more. They would fall quickly, and news of their defeat would spread fear throughout human space. What Zorath did not know, what his intelligence officers had failed to discover, was the true nature of Forge Station. He did not know that the 200 humans below were the most dangerous soldiers humanity had ever produced. He did not know that every one of them had faced simulated invasions dozens of times and had learned to win against impossible odds. He did not know that he was about to give them exactly what they had been training for. As the Valorian ships began their descent toward the planet, Daniel Hayes stood at his window and watched the stars. That strange feeling was still there, that sense of something approaching. He checked his sidearm out of habit, then laughed at himself. "Getting paranoid," he muttered. But paranoid soldiers live longer than comfortable ones. And in a few short hours, Hayes and everyone else on Forge Station would learn just how right Cole Patterson had been. The storm was coming, and it had teeth. The night remained quiet, but it would not stay that way for long. The first explosion came at dawn. A bright flash of light turned the sky orange, and then the sound followed like thunder rolling across the mountains. The communication tower on the north side of the base collapsed in a shower of metal and fire. 3 seconds later, the second tower fell. Daniel Hayes was already moving before the echoes faded. He had been awake for an hour, unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. Now he understood why. He grabbed his combat vest, his rifle, and his helmet, and ran toward the Tactical Operations Center. The corridors were full of soldiers moving with purpose. There was no panic, no confusion. Every person knew exactly where to go and what to do. This was what they trained for, day after day, month after month. The only difference now was that the enemy was real. Captain Kevin Brooks was at his console when Hayes arrived. His fingers moved across the controls faster than seemed possible. 3 dropships coming down hard, sir. Enemy warships in orbit. I count at least 15, maybe more. Hayes studied the screens. The enemy ships were large and well-armed, but they were holding position rather than attacking. They were waiting for their ground forces to finish the job. That was a mistake. "Show me the dropship landing zones." Brooks adjusted the display. 3 red markers appeared on the map, forming a triangle around the base. Classic encirclement strategy. The enemy wanted to surround them and squeeze inward. It was a good plan against a normal target. Forge Station was not a normal target. Hayes activated the base-wide communication system. "All personnel, this is Lieutenant Commander Hayes. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. Protocol Omega is now in effect. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. In the barracks, Master Sergeant Cole Patterson heard the announcement and smiled grimly. He had known the storm was coming. Now it was here. He turned to the soldiers around him, young men and women who had come to Forge Station to become better warriors. Today, they would prove how much they had learned. "You heard the man," Patterson said. "Protocol Omega. Move like your lives depend on it, because they do." Protocol Omega was the base's war footing procedure. It had been designed by the finest military minds on Earth and tested thousands of times in simulation. Within 90 seconds of the announcement, every soldier on Forge Station had transitioned from training mode to full combat readiness. Defensive positions were manned, weapons were loaded, and traps were armed. Staff Sergeant Ashley Morgan led her 12-person fire team to the eastern ridge overlooking the base. From this position, they could see 2 of the 3 enemy landing zones. The alien dropships were just touching down, their hulls still glowing from atmospheric entry. Doors opened, and soldiers began to pour out. Morgan studied the enemy through her scope. They were tall, with gray skin and 4 eyes. Their armor was thick, and their weapons looked powerful. But they moved in predictable patterns, bunched together in tight groups. They did not spread out or seek cover. They walked toward the base like they expected no resistance at all. "They think this will be easy," Morgan said quietly. Private First Class Lucas Grant lay beside her, his own rifle ready. "Should we tell them they're wrong?" Morgan waited until the first group of aliens was directly in her kill zone. "Let them figure it out themselves." Open fire. The ridge exploded with gunfire. Morgan's team had trained together for months, and they operated like a single machine. Each shot was precise, each target chosen carefully. The first alien formation fell before they even knew they were under attack. On the opposite side of the base, Sergeant First Class Megan Torres coordinated the sniper teams. She had positioned her shooters at points the enemy could not easily detect, using the terrain and the buildings for cover. When the aliens advanced, they walked into overlapping fields of fire that cut them down from multiple angles. Torres watched through her scope as an alien officer tried to rally his troops. She took a breath, let it out slowly, and squeezed the trigger. The officer dropped, and his soldiers scattered in confusion. Without leadership, they became easy targets. In orbit, Commander Zorath watched the casualty reports with growing disbelief. This was impossible. His ground forces were elite warriors, veterans of a dozen campaigns. They should have overrun this tiny base in minutes. Instead, they were dying by the dozens. "What is happening down there?" Zorath demanded. His tactical officer looked pale. "Sir, the humans are not behaving as expected. They have defensive positions we did not detect. Their weapons are more accurate than our intelligence suggested. And they are not surrendering." Zorath slammed his fist against the console. "Send the second wave. All remaining ground forces. Overwhelm them with numbers." But numbers were not the problem. The humans had prepared for this exact scenario. They had trained against superior forces, against surprise attacks, against everything the galaxy could throw at them. They were not afraid. They were ready. Daniel Hayes moved through the base, checking positions and adjusting defenses. He found Kevin Brooks coordinating artillery strikes on the enemy landing zones, disrupting their ability to reinforce. He found Megan Torres personally leading a counterattack that pushed the aliens back 300 meters. He found Cole Patterson teaching a group of young soldiers how to disable alien armor with close-quarters combat. Everywhere Hayes looked, he saw soldiers doing exactly what they had been trained to do. They fought with precision and discipline. They supported each other and covered each other's weaknesses. They turned every building into a fortress and every corridor into a death trap. The Valorians had expected fear. They found Steel Dot by midday. The first wave of alien attackers had been destroyed. Bodies in gray armor littered the ground around the base. Burning dropships sent columns of smoke into the sky. And inside Forge Station, the soldiers of Earth were already preparing for what came next. Hayes gathered his senior officers in the Tactical Operations Center. Their faces were tired but determined. They had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. "They'll come again," Hayes said. "Harder this time. They know what we are now." Torres nodded. "Good. Let them come." Patterson cracked his knuckles. "We've got plenty more lessons to teach." Brooks pulled up new sensor data on his screens. "Sir, I'm detecting movement from the enemy fleet. Looks like they're repositioning for another assault." Hayes looked at his team, these soldiers who had stood firm against impossible odds. They had faced an alien invasion and had not flinched. Now they would face another, and another after that, until the enemy understood that this small outpost was not the weak point they had hoped for. It was a wall. And walls do not break easily. "Let them come," Hayes said. "We'll be waiting." The second wave of Valorian soldiers was 3 times larger than the first. Nearly 300 elite warriors marched toward Forge Station with heavy weapons and armored vehicles. Commander Zorath watched from orbit as his forces spread across the battlefield. This time would be different. This time, the humans would fall, but the humans had other plans. Daniel Hayes stood in the command center, watching the enemy advance on multiple screens. He saw their formations, their equipment, and their strategy. It was exactly what he expected. The Valorians were strong, but they fought the same way every time. They relied on numbers and firepower. They did not adapt. That was their weakness. And Hayes was about to use it against them. "All teams," Hayes said into his communicator. "Begin Phase 2. The ground beneath the advancing Valorian army began to shake. Explosives that had been buried weeks ago during a training exercise detonated in sequence, tearing holes in the earth and swallowing soldiers whole. Vehicles tipped into sudden craters and crashed against each other. The neat formations dissolved into chaos. From the eastern ridge, Staff Sergeant Ashley Morgan watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. Her team had spent 3 days planting those charges, working in the dark and the cold. Now, that work was paying off. "Move to secondary positions," she ordered. "Time to pick off the survivors." Sergeant First Class Megan Torres led her sniper teams to new locations along the southern hills. From here, they could see deep into the enemy lines. She spotted an alien commander trying to restore order among his troops and put a bullet through his helmet. Another officer rose to take his place. Torres dropped him too. "They keep promoting people," she muttered. "That's nice of them." The Valorians tried to push forward, but every path led into another trap. Mines exploded under their feet. Automated turrets emerged from hidden bunkers and raked their lines with fire. Soldiers appeared from nowhere, attacked, and vanished before the aliens could respond. Corporal Nathan Rivera led a 4-person reconnaissance team deep behind enemy lines. They moved like shadows through the smoke and confusion, avoiding patrols and slipping past guards. Their target was the Valorian Mobile Command Post, a large vehicle at the center of the invasion force. Rivera stopped his team near a rocky outcrop and studied the command post through binoculars. Guards surrounded it, but they were looking outward, watching for attacks from the base. They did not expect anyone to come from behind. "There's our prize," Rivera said quietly. "We go in fast and quiet. Grab their tactical data and get out before they know we were there." Private Amy Chun checked her silenced pistol. "And if they notice us?" Rivera shrugged. "Then we go fast and loud instead." They waited until a patrol passed, then moved. Rivera went first, dropping a guard with a single shot. Chun took the next one. In 30 seconds, they had cleared a path to the command post and slipped inside through a maintenance hatch. The interior was filled with screens and equipment that Rivera did not recognize. Strange symbols flickered across displays, showing troop movements and communication logs. An alien officer sat at the main console, his back turned to the entrance. Rivera approached silently and pressed his knife against the alien's throat. "Don't move," Rivera said. "We're just here for information." The officer moved anyway. Rivera finished him quickly and then began downloading everything the console contained. Maps, codes, fleet positions, and communication frequencies all flowed into a small device he carried. When it was done, he signaled his team. "We're leaving. Plant the charges on your way out." 2 minutes later, the mobile command post exploded in a ball of fire. The blast destroyed the heart of the Valorian ground operations and left their soldiers completely blind. They could not talk to each other. They could not coordinate attacks. They could not call for support from orbit. Commander Zorath received the news in shocked silence. His command post was gone. His officers were dead. His army was scattered and confused. How was this possible? These were supposed to be simple trainers and students. They should not be capable of this level of warfare, but they were. And they were not finished yet. Technical specialist Derek Kim sat at a computer terminal deep inside Forge Station. He was young, barely 25, with messy hair and glasses that he constantly adjusted. He did not look like a warrior, but his weapon was not a gun. It was code. "I'm into their navigation systems," Kim announced. "The dropships are connected to a central network. Very sloppy security." Captain Kevin Brooks leaned over his shoulder. "Can you control them?" Kim smiled. "Better. I can make them think they're controlling themselves." His fingers flew across the keyboard, inserting commands into the alien systems. The Valorians had built their technology to be efficient, but they had not built it to resist intrusion. They had never faced an enemy clever enough to attack them this way. Outside the base, 2 of the 3 remaining dropships suddenly lifted off. Their pilots fought the controls, but the ships did not respond. They rose higher and higher, then turned toward each other. The collision was visible from orbit. 2 ships, each worth more than a small colony, crashed together and fell burning from the sky. Zorath watched them fall and felt something he had not experienced in a very long time. Fear. Thought he had underestimated these humans. He had thought them weak because they lived on a distant rock with minimal defenses. He had not understood that the defenses were not walls and turrets. The defenses were the people themselves. "Sir," his tactical officer said, voice shaking. "Ground forces are requesting permission to retreat." Zorath wanted to refuse. The Valorian Dominion did not retreat. They conquered. They won. But the numbers on his screens told a different story. Over 200 soldiers dead. 3 command officers eliminated. 2 dropships destroyed. And the enemy had not lost a single position. "Grant permission," Zorath said quietly. "Pull everyone back." But retreat was not so simple. The humans had anticipated this too. They had placed teams along every exit route, every path that led away from the base. When the Valorians tried to run, they found themselves surrounded. Master Sergeant Cole Patterson led one of the blocking forces. His soldiers were tired but eager. They had been defending all day. Now it was time to attack. "Remember your training," Patterson told them. "Controlled fire. Watch your flanks. And don't let any of them slip away." The Valorians tried to fight through. They failed. They tried to find another path. Every path was closed. They were trapped between the base and the hills, caught in a pocket of fire and death. Daniel Hayes watched the battlefield from the command center. The enemy was broken. Their invasion had become a disaster. But Hayes took no pleasure in it. War was not something to enjoy. It was something to win. "Send the message," Hayes said. Tell them they have one chance to surrender. The message went out on the aliens' own frequency. Surrender or die. Those were the options. And after everything they had seen, after everything they had lost, the Valorians made their choice. One by one, they put down their weapons. Commander Zorath knew that he had lost. The reports from the surface told a story of complete disaster. His ground forces were destroyed or captured. His dropships were burning wreckage. The human base stood untouched, its defenders stronger than ever. But surrender was not an option. The Valorian Dominion did not surrender. They conquered or they died. There was no middle path. "Prepare my personal shuttle," Zorath ordered. "I will lead the final assault myself." His officers exchanged worried looks. Going to the surface now was suicide. But none of them dared to say so. Zorath was their commander, and his word was law. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere, carrying Zorath and his personal guard, 50 of the finest warriors in the Dominion fleet. They were the best of the best, soldiers who had never known defeat. If anyone could turn this battle around, they could. Daniel Hayes watched the shuttle land on a ridge 2 kilometers from the base. He knew immediately that this was something different. The ship was larger and better armored than the dropships. Someone important was aboard. "Torres," Hayes said into his communicator. "I need eyes on that new contact." Megan Torres adjusted her scope and studied the shuttle. Soldiers emerged in tight formation, their armor more advanced than the regular troops. In the center of the group walked a tall figure with a red cloak draped over his shoulders. "Looks like a commander," Torres reported. "High-value target. Want me to take the shot?" Hayes considered it. Killing the enemy leader would end this battle quickly, but a dead commander could not answer questions. And Hayes had many questions. "Negative," Hayes said. "We're going to take him alive." Sergeant First Class Ryan Cooper received the order with a grim smile. His specialty was close quarters combat, the brutal and personal kind of warfare that happened in tight spaces where rifles were too slow. He had captured enemy officers before. This would be his greatest challenge yet. "I need a team," Cooper said. "Volunteers only. This one's going to be ugly." 12 soldiers stepped forward immediately. Cooper picked the 6 best and began planning the assault. The Valorian commander moved toward the base with his guards, spread around him in a protective formation. They advanced slowly, checking every shadow and every piece of cover. These were not the confused troops from before. These were professionals, but so were the humans. Cooper's team had circled around to approach from the rear. They moved in complete silence, using terrain and vegetation for cover. They communicated with hand signals, saying nothing that the enemy might hear. When they reached their position, Cooper held up his fist. "Stop. Wait." The Valorians passed by, unaware of the danger behind them. Cooper counted heartbeats, waiting for the perfect moment. Then he dropped his hand. The attack was over in seconds. Cooper's team struck from multiple directions at once, hitting the rear guards before they could raise their weapons. The Valorians were fast, but the humans were faster. They had trained for exactly this kind of fight, practicing until every movement was instinct. Zora spun to face the attackers, his weapon raised. But Cooper was already there, inside his guard, too close for the gun to matter. A sharp blow to the arm knocked the weapon away. Another blow to the leg brought the commander to his knees. Before Zorath could recover, Cooper had him pinned to the ground with a knife at his throat. "Commander Zorath of the Valorian Dominion," Cooper said calmly, "you are now a prisoner of the United Earth Defense Force. Resist, and I will kill you where you lie." Zorath stared up at the human with disbelief in his 4 eyes. He had conquered 17 worlds. He had defeated armies and broken empires. And now he was on his knees, captured by a species he had dismissed as inferior. "This is impossible," Zorath whispered. Cooper smiled without humor. Get used to impossible. You're dealing with humans now. The remaining Valorian guards surrendered when they saw their commander captured. They were disarmed and restrained alongside the soldiers taken earlier. In total, the humans had captured nearly 100 enemy prisoners, including one of the highest-ranking officers in the Dominion fleet. Captain Katie Brennan took charge of the interrogation. She was the base's intelligence officer, a woman with sharp eyes and a patient manner. She did not need to threaten or hurt the prisoners. She simply asked questions and waited for answers. Zorath refused to speak at first. He sat in the interrogation room with his wrist bound, staring at the wall in silent defiance. But Brennan had time. She had all the time in the world. "I know you think you're being brave," Brennan said softly. "But your fleet is still in orbit. If you don't help us understand why you attacked, we will have to assume the worst. And we will respond accordingly." Zorath remained silent. Brennan nodded and pulled out a tablet. She showed him images of the battle, the destroyed dropships, the captured soldiers, the bodies scattered across the battlefield. "Your invasion failed completely," she said. "You lost everything. And yet your fleet remains. Why? What are they waiting for?" Something flickered in Zorath's eyes. Fear, perhaps. Or maybe just exhaustion. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "They are waiting for my signal. If I do not report success within the next cycle, they have orders to destroy this planet from orbit." Brennan kept her expression calm, but her heart beat faster. Orbital bombardment would kill everyone on the surface. The base's defenses could not stop that kind of attack. "Why target us?" she asked. "We are a training facility. We have no strategic value." Zorath laughed, a harsh and bitter sound. "You have no value? That is exactly why we chose you. The Dominion wanted to demonstrate human weakness. We wanted to show the galaxy that your species is easy prey. Your outer colonies were next, then your core worlds. This was supposed to be the first step." Brennan leaned forward. "But now?" Zorath met her eyes, and for the first time she saw something other than arrogance in his gaze. She saw respect. "Now I understand that we made a terrible mistake. You are not weak. You are not prey. You are something far more dangerous." Brennan ended the interrogation and reported directly to Daniel Hayes. The situation was clear. The Valorian fleet was waiting for a signal, and if that signal did not come, they would destroy the planet. Hayes listened to the report and made his decision. They could not let the fleet attack. They could not let the Dominion think it had succeeded. And they could not let this happen to any other human world. "Get me a communication channel to those ships," Hayes said. "It's time to send a message of our own." The next few hours would determine the fate of everyone on Kepler 442b. But Daniel Hayes was not worried. They had already done the impossible once today. Doing it again would simply be practice. The Valorian fleet hung in orbit like a silent threat. 15 warships with enough firepower to turn the surface of Kepler 442b into glass. Their commanders waited for word from Zorath, waited for the signal that would tell them the mission was complete. That signal would never come. Daniel Hayes stood in the communication center with his senior officers around him. Technical specialist Derek Kim had established a link to the enemy fleet using codes captured from Zorath's equipment. The Valorians did not know it yet, but they were about to receive a very different message than the one they expected. "Channel is open," Kim announced. "They can hear us now." Hayes stepped forward and looked into the camera. His face was calm, his voice steady. He spoke not as a soldier defending a small outpost, but as a representative of all humanity. "This is Lieutenant Commander Daniel Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. I am addressing the commanders of the Valorian fleet. Your invasion has failed. Commander Zorath is our prisoner. Your ground forces have been destroyed or captured. This facility remains fully operational. On the bridge of the lead warship, Fleet Admiral Vorn listened with growing horror. The images being transmitted showed human soldiers standing over Valorian prisoners. They showed Zorath in restraints, his eyes cast down in defeat. They showed the burning wreckage of dropships and the bodies of warriors who had never known defeat. Hayes continued. You came here expecting to find a weak target. You thought we would be easy prey. You were wrong. Forge Station is a training facility for the United Earth Defense Force. The soldiers you face today were students. They were learning how to fight. Consider what our teachers are capable of. The words hung in the air like a blade. Admiral Vorn exchanged glances with his officers. Students. These humans had destroyed an invasion force, captured a commander, and broken an army, and they were merely students. You have a choice to make, Hayes said. You can attack this planet and kill everyone here. But if you do, you will gain nothing. You will only prove that the Valorian Dominion is afraid of what we have shown you today. And fear is a powerful motivator. It will make humanity angry. It will make them united. It will make them come for you with everything they have. Hayes paused to let those words sink in. Then he spoke again, softer now but no less firm. Or you can leave. You can return to your High Council and tell them the truth. Tell them that humanity is not the easy conquest they hoped for. Tell them that we are willing to defend ourselves, but we do not seek war. Tell them that peace is still possible, if they are wise enough to choose it. The transmission ended. Hayes turned away from the camera and let out a slow breath. He had done everything he could. Now the decision belonged to the Valorians. Admiral Vorn stared at the blank screen for a long moment. His officers waited in tense silence. The fleet had the power to destroy the planet below. One order, and every human on Kepler 442b would die. But then what? The humans had proven themselves formidable warriors. If word spread of what had happened here, if other species learned that a small training base had defeated a Valorian invasion force, the Dominion's reputation would suffer greatly. And if they destroyed the planet, that story would still spread. Other humans would learn. Other humans would prepare. And other humans would come seeking revenge. Vorn thought of his own world, his own people. The Dominion had grown powerful through conquest, but conquest required victory. What they had found today was not victory. It was a warning. Set course for home, Vorn ordered quietly. His officers stared at him in shock. Sir, we are just going to leave? Vorn nodded slowly. We came here to test the humans. We have our answer. Continuing this attack would serve no purpose except to prove them right about us. The fleet began to move, their engines powering up for the long journey back to Dominion space. One by one, the warships turned away from Kepler 442b and slipped into the darkness between stars. On the surface, Megan Torres watched them go through her scope. They're leaving, she said, almost disbelieving. They're actually leaving. Hayes felt the tension drain from his shoulders. The threat was over. They had won. Not just the battle, but the larger conflict that might have followed. For now, at least, peace was possible. 3 days later, the repairs to Forge Station were nearly complete. New communication towers stood where the old ones had fallen. The defensive positions had been reinforced. The prisoners had been treated for their injuries and were being held in a secure area until arrangements could be made for their return. Hayes ordered one prisoner released early, a young Valorian soldier who had surrendered quickly and cooperated fully during interrogation. His name was Korath, and he was given a repaired dropship and a data crystal containing footage of the entire battle. Take this to your High Council, Hayes told him. Let them see what happened here. Let them understand what they will face if they choose war with humanity. Korath accepted the crystal with trembling hands. He had expected to die on this distant world. Instead, he was being sent home with a message and a warning. He did not understand these humans, but he respected them. "Why are you showing mercy?" Korath asked. Hayes thought about the question for a moment. "Because we are not conquerors. We are defenders. We fight to protect, not to destroy. Remember that." The dropship lifted off and disappeared into the sky. Hayes watched it go, then turned to find Torres standing beside him. "Think they'll come back?" she asked. Hayes allowed himself a small smile. "I hope so. The advanced class needs a final exam." Torres laughed, the first genuine laugh anyone had heard since the attack began. The tension was finally breaking. The soldiers of Forge Station had done the impossible, and they had survived to tell the tale. Weeks later, on the Valorian homeworld, the High Council gathered to view the footage Korath had brought. They watched in horrified silence as their invasion force was systematically destroyed by humans, who moved like water and struck like thunder. They watched Zorath fall to his knees, captured by soldiers half his size. They watched Admiral Vorn order the retreat, and when the footage ended, they saw the final message from Daniel Hayes. Forge Station was a training facility. The soldiers you encountered were students. Consider carefully what our teachers are capable of. The council debated for hours, but the outcome was never truly in doubt. For the first time in their species' long history of conquest, the Valorian Dominion voted to seek peace with another civilization, back on Kepler 442b. The soldiers of Forge Station returned to their routines. The training continued, harder than ever now that they knew the threats were real. New students arrived to replace those who had graduated into active service. Life went on, but something had changed. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not to be underestimated. The lesson of Forge Station would spread from world to world, carried by merchants and travelers and diplomats. And wherever it spread, it carried the same message. Humanity was watching. Humanity was ready. And humanity was not afraid. The stars looked different now. They looked like a promise,